television program that will be on PBS later, maybe during Mental Health Month, is When Medicine Got It Wrong. And June, you've been there and done that about in the 1970s, and you could maybe explain more about what people, the attitudes of people, of parents with schizophrenia children.
What happened in 1979?
That's right. Why they had it. Why it was started.
Well, the reason it was started is because there was no place for our people to be treated.
Because of?
Because of the institutionalization.
Okay.
Yes. Everyone thought it was doing
triggering.
Yeah. You know, we'd all seen those horrible movies, you know, like Snake Pit and One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest, and so we all hated the thought of our loved ones, my sons, and others being put into those horrible institutions. So we were sitting ducks here for deinstitutionalization. Saying, oh yeah, deinstitutionalization, then they'll come home and they'll be well and there will be no mental illness anymore. And that
they were supposed to set up community centers.
Yes.
And of course
and the money
never came.
And this was all rolled in with the assassination of JFK too, because he was the one who was a proponent of the community centers, and then when he was assassinated, the focus changed.
Well, it went to Medicaid and Medicare too, wasn't that one of the reasons?
There were a lot of historical things that were happening,
right.
Political things that were happening that caused some of this downfall here.
And the biggest problem was that those folks in the institutions had the more long-term mental illness, and we all have these little rosy glasses on, little pink rosy glasses, thinking that only we will be able to keep them well if we can keep them home and we will love them. And come to find out that these are serious, serious illnesses and they required professionals. And when the state hospitals closed, the professionals were not invited into the mental health centers to teach the people. So the folks in the mental health centers did not know how to work with these folks that had long-term and recurring mental illnesses.
But why did it start? Because the parents, they were blaming the parents. Remember?
That's what you wanted me to say all this time.
That's what I wanted you to say. Yeah,
they still do that. Whoever they might be, society, we should say in a lot of cases. Society
that is one of the reasons. Because it said when medicine got it wrong, because these people rocked the halls of psychiatry.
Dr. E. Fuller Torrey was our spokesperson because he was a psychiatrist, and he came out with his first book back then, right at that time, and it was called Schizophrenia, a Manual for Families. And he said in that book, it is not your fault, people. You are not the cause. These are biological illnesses. These are genetic, oftentimes.
Brain disorders
that respond to medicine. And it's not your fault, families. But we mothers, and mostly mothers, meanwhile, before E. Fuller even led the way, we all met together in Madison, Wisconsin, because from all over the United States, we were finding that we could not get help for our loved ones. We could not get help. And so we all met together and we said, we're going to make a difference. And because they had blamed us, there is no doubt. When I took my son to a mental health center, the first thing that I was told was, well, the first thing they said to me was, what have you done to your son? What have I done to my son?
Right. And that was 30 years ago. That's
1979.
But it's still that we need to make sure that we know in society as a whole, people who are, because we don't educate about mental health. We don't have it in our schools. We're not educated. Society as a whole are not educated. So they have this belief that there's this social, environmental, huge factor in there called the mother syndrome or something that's causing mental health problems when that's not the case.
Yeah, it's a brain disorder. Okay.
Yeah, and I was so, I felt camaraderie when I went to my first national meeting, which was right around then. And the woman who was our president, a wonderful woman, you know, like we all are, right? And she said, when my son's home, son's home living with me and he has a relapse, it's my fault. But somehow or other, when he's living in a group home or he's living somewhere else where there are a lot of staff people, well then, whose fault is it then? Whose fault can we? But anyway, now we've come a long, long way.
And that's why we have Mental Illness Awareness Week, which was established in 1990 by Congress, recognizing NAMI's effort to raise mental illness awareness. And we have become the largest grassroots, formidable mental health organization in the country.
Yes.
Yep.
We've got the scars to prove it.
Some interesting things about 30 years ago. When NAMI was created, there was just one scientist studying severe mental illness at the National Institute of Mental Health. Now that's 30 years ago.
One. E. Fuller, you got to give him credit because he just blasted him. Said I went to a meeting about schizophrenia because I was looking for anything to help my son. I was a teacher and I took time off from my job and went down to Des Moines because it was. And the fellow who was talking said, "Well, I will tell you right up front, I'm not going to talk about schizophrenia because that is the cancer of mental health." And I looked at him and I thought,
why did I come? Right?
There is no hope. There was no hope. But then we had wonderful new medicines began to be
the atypicals.
developed. Yeah, the atypicals. And now we have folks, as you know, who if you recognize, and especially if you have a history of schizophrenia in your family, like a young man, 17, 18 years old, that's beginning to show bizarre behavior, psychosis, you get him right on these new medicines, and by golly, we've had real success stories.
Yes. Now, and prevention is such a big push right now, and they've done research to show that if you catch any type of mental health symptoms early in childhood, because a lot of these symptoms can start showing themselves very early.
Oh, they said they can recognize depression in a child at 3 years old.
Yes.
That was just came out from NAMI.
Okay. And so or they realize what suicide is by 3.
Right, we just found that out today.
And it was like, oh, I would have never thought that.
Yes,
but yeah, you can prevent future incidences of mental illness by treating it and catching it early.
Well, just like any other disease.
And medicines are very, very important. It doesn't just do good and be loving and kind. You've got to have a complete physical and you've got to have a complete psychiatric evaluation, because if you don't, and if you don't start treating by medicine.
If it's needed. Again, there's different, this is a continuum. There are some milder mental health problems that may not need medicine.
Right.
But then there's the more serious ones you do.
And that's what we're talking
you
about.
don't need after a while. It does settle down after.
And when we talk about serious chronic mental illness, we talk about schizophrenia, we talk about bipolar disorder, major depression, borderline personality, obsessive compulsive,
anxiety
and then
disorders.
The big one is the post-traumatic stress syndrome, which the veterans, I mean, that is just
with all of them coming back.
And speaking of the veterans, let's go back to Mental Illness Awareness Week.
That's right.
Don't you love it?
We are collaborating with the Veterans VA Hospital, and they're putting on some great programs on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings at 6:30 p.m. at the Coralville Library. And the one on 6:30 is...
on Wednesday, too.
Well, that one you have to sign up for. So I will mention that after I get done with the other ones.
Okay, go right ahead.
The one on Tuesday is Pleasure, Positive Sexual Expression for Individuals Living with a Mental Health Diagnosis. And Sarah Fraley, a PhD psychologist from the Iowa City VA Medical Center, is going to give that presentation. And just like any other illness, you have to deal with everything for your recovery.
Well, and with oftentimes with some of those medicines for men, they become impotent, and that's a huge
there's side
reason
effects
why they
from
quit
that.
taking the medicine.
Right.
So
you
this
can understand
woman,
that.
and this woman has something to say about that.
Right, and I think that if it's with anyone with a mental illness too. I mean that's what they're saying, to come, and she is going to talk. And then the one on Thursday is a journey of recovery. Is John Kerstetter, MD, and he had a cerebral vascular event, a stroke, and he's going to talk about how he has changed his life, and he had a brain injury, and how much he has had, what he's gone through to change his focus on his life, because he was a surgeon.
Right.
And I think he's going to become a nonfiction writer. So,
oh my goodness!
Just to put in here real quickly, the brain injury and traumatic brain injury and whatnot that's happening with our vets that are coming back and whatnot, and strokes and whatnot that are happening with elderly people. We're finding a lot of overlap with the symptomology that's happening with these people as happens with people with mental illness.
Right.
So this is a brain disorder. We're seeing more and more that mental illness is, again, you can't kind of pull apart.
Together.
You see this overlap happening, so it just shows one more time just how biologically based mental illness is.
Right. Yeah. And I will mention the one on Wednesday, which is from 12:30 to 4:30 p.m., and that is at the Coralville Public Library. Irene Harris, PhD from Minneapolis VA Medical Center, is going to give a workshop, Spirituality and Recovery from Trauma, a provider's workshop.